The film begins with Detective Lerner carefully examining a burned-down building, while a group of forensic experts inspects the victims' bodies. One of the officers shows Lerner a message on the wall, written in blood, where only one word can be made out: Joe. This immediately tells the investigator a lot. The central character of the film, a woman named Rebecca, regains consciousness in a police station, having no memory of how she ended up there.
What happened?
She is being interrogated by Detective Moon, who harshly informs the detainee of what is happening. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, she had been found unconscious in a car on the highway and was brought to the station. She was heavily intoxicated. Gradually, Rebecca begins to remember. The night before, she had drunk too much wine in a bar. At that point, her memory once again cuts off. Rebecca asks to use the restroom, and upon returning, she no longer finds Detective Moon. Instead, another investigator continues the questioning in a softer, more understanding manner. The two play the classic game of good cop, bad cop. The man shows Rebecca footage from surveillance cameras. The recording shows the interrogation of a certain Robert, whom they call a witness. This name sparks another wave of memories in her, because she did, in fact, meet this man at the bar last night. Robert claims during interrogation that they had a good time together in the car, and then parted ways, with Rebecca leaving on her own. However, she categorically denies his words and insists she was not drunk. Rebecca asks the police to allow her to pay the fine for drunk driving and let her go. But the investigators inform her that the hood of her car has serious damage and bloodstains. Everything points to the fact that she may have hit someone. Rebecca is temporarily placed in a holding cell, but due to ongoing repairs, she is not put into the women's section, instead being sent to a shared cell. They assure her that her cellmates are just harmless drunks. At that moment, her friend Sarah appears. They are given some time to talk. During the conversation, Sarah hands Rebecca a chocolate bar and casually points out the word "run" highlighted on the wrapper. Soon, Sarah is asked to leave, and the puzzled woman is left alone again. The investigators tell Rebecca that the situation is serious. At the accident site, they discovered a cyclist who had been hit. She insists on meeting with a lawyer, but it turns out her regular attorney is on vacation. Instead, a temporary replacement named Isaac arrives. He and his client are shown photographs of her wrecked car covered in blood. Realizing that the lawyer is completely incompetent, she suggests that the forensics team conduct a DNA analysis before accusing her of murder. Rebecca is once again sent back to the shared cell. One of her cellmates, Sally, begins acting more and more erratic. He seems to be completely losing his mind. Another detainee panics, begging them to remove him before it is too late. And for good reason, Sally attacks her. At the sound of screams, Detective Moon rushes in, urgently opens the cell, and tries to subdue the deranged man. But Sally lunges at her as well and begins strangling her. Moon pleads with Rebecca to grab the gun and shoot. Rebecca fires but misses. The bullet hits the detective straight in the chest. Then Avery bursts into the cell, stunned, but he does not manage to save his partner, and she dies in his arms. The investigator leads a trembling Rebecca into the interrogation room and sharply orders her to sit down. He accuses her of killing a police officer and threatens her with life imprisonment. In despair, Rebecca offers him a bribe of $1 million. Avery hesitates, so she raises the offer to $1,200,000. After brief negotiations, they settle on $1.5 million. Free instructs her to log into her bank account using a laptop and temporarily leaves her alone. Rebecca tries to focus, but notices strange things. On some objects in the station, she sees markings that say prop. The phones do not work, and on the papers the word run appears again, which unsettles her even more. At this moment, the same insecure lawyer returns to the station, and Avery rudely demands that he leave. But suddenly, Rebecca begins to realize that everything around her is fake. These police officers are actors with fake badges, and the entire building is nothing but a stage set. Suddenly, she snatches Avery's gun. He, without breaking character, continues to play the role of detective as if nothing happened and threatens her. Rebecca cannot take it anymore and pulls the trigger, but instead of a shot, there is only a click. The gun turns out to be fake. From behind, the man who played the role of the witness, Robert, rushes in and strikes her with a taser. The unfortunate woman once again loses consciousness. Now we see the backstage of this performance. All these people are indeed actors, and since they were nearly exposed, they begin to carry out a new plan. Rebecca wakes up, handcuffed to a table. Opposite her sits the entire group of actors involved in the operation, now without their masks. Avery explains why she is here. His brother Lewis was her boss, and she was close to him. But someone took Lewis's life, and Avery accuses Rebecca of stealing money and being involved in his death. She denies everything. According to her, shortly before the tragedy, Lewis told her that he was being followed, and he gave her the keys to a bank safe. Soon after he died, Avery does not back down and demands that she transfer him $8 million. Rebecca admits that there were only $2 million in the safe. She assumes that the rest burned in the office fire where Lewis died. Then someone from the gang suggests a theory. Perhaps the killer was Jovan, a notorious criminal who sets fires and burns his victims to cover his tracks. Gradually, it becomes clear that this group of amateurs has come together for the first time, and many do not even know each other. Rebecca cleverly sows doubts among them. What if Jovan is actually Avery? But the gang does not fall for the provocation and threatens Rebecca with torture, demanding that she log into her bank account. Soon they go outside to get some air and talk, leaving her alone. Taking advantage of the moment, Rebecca finds a knife under the table. At that moment, Robert returns. He explains how he brought her here after the bar. He admits that he is not part of the gang and that he even liked her. Rebecca warns him about Avery and begs him not to trust him. Then she asks to be allowed to go to the bathroom, and Robert removes the handcuffs, leading her to the restroom. Rebecca fakes a coughing fit and tries to escape through the restroom window, but Robert hears it. Then she threatens him with the knife, taking him hostage. Hearing the commotion, Avery runs in and shoots Robert in the leg. As a result, Rebecca is once again handcuffed. Meanwhile, Robert is bleeding out, and his companions indifferently watch as he loses consciousness and slowly dies. All attention is on Rebecca again, and she once more plants doubts by declaring that Avery will eliminate them one by one. Now everyone is suspicious of each other, thinking that one of them really is Jovan. However, Rebecca is again threatened with death if she does not give them the money. But suddenly, one of the criminals, Solly, feels unwell after a sip of water and dies unexpectedly. Still, no one gives up, and the gang moves from words to action, torturing Rebecca with various sharp objects. Once again, they leave her alone in the dark while they go off to discuss everything. But suddenly, there is a knock at the door of the building. It turns out that the structure is scheduled to be demolished within an hour. Then Avery gives Isaac a gun and goes back to Rebecca himself. She does not give in to persuasion, and then they bring in Rebecca's friend Sarah, bound and gagged with tape. It turns out that Sarah also took part in this affair and even cooperated with the gang, but at some point simply disappeared, refusing to continue. Then Rebecca begs them to release Sarah, insisting that they barely know each other and that Sarah knows nothing. Avery threatens to kill Sarah if Rebecca does not transfer him the money. Enraged, he shoots the poor woman in the leg and then points the gun at her temple. Then the long-since resurrected Moon intervenes, and she begins to grow nervous. Soon details of the victim's identity are revealed. Sarah has an adopted son named Brandon, whose biological mother is Rebecca, and whose father was the deceased Lewis. The infant himself also had to be brought into this building, but Avery assures Moon that nothing will happen to the baby if he is not provoked. And all of this, he claims, was arranged supposedly for the sake of a sick father. Within the ranks of the criminals, division begins to fester. More and more suspicion falls on Avery. They must get rid of him quickly before he eliminates them himself. A fight breaks out between Jez, the girl from the gang, and Isaac. She strikes her temple against the corner of a piece of furniture and dies instantly. Avery brings the baby in a stroller to Rebecca and demands that she leave the child as collateral until she retrieves the money. She remains silent, unable to respond. Then Avery suddenly pulls out a gun and fires into the stroller. Rebecca has a breakdown. She runs to the stroller only to see that it holds nothing but an ordinary toy. This psychological trick works. The victim now seems completely broken. The horror she has endured forces her to do anything to ensure that the real baby will not be harmed. Then, the 3 surviving gang members return to the room, expecting Rebecca to finally transfer the money. Suddenly, Isaac admits that Jez is dead. The tension reaches its peak. Everyone points their weapons at each other. The atmosphere becomes explosive. Moon pleads with Isaac to lower his gun. He hesitantly obeys, but immediately afterward, Avery kills him. A brawl erupts. Sarah frees herself from the ropes, and Avery attacks Moon. A fight begins, and meanwhile, Rebecca attempts to escape. Avery kills the last remaining gang member and returns to Rebecca. With a smile, she tells him exactly how she killed Sally. By slipping a massive dose of sleeping pills into his coffee. But that is not all. Rebecca confesses that she also ensured Robert's death by throwing a knife into his already shot leg, piercing the femoral artery. She did the same with the dying Isaac. Panicked Avery begins shooting at her, but the gun is loaded with blanks, while the real weapon is already in Rebecca's hands, as she had managed to free herself. With a single shot, she finishes Avery. Finally, Rebecca takes the baby and is about to leave when Sarah reminds her of her presence. Sarah has already managed to call the police and report all the horrors taking place here. However, Rebecca is forced to get rid of her as well. Avery is still conscious when she pours gasoline all over the floor. He begs her for mercy, and then she calmly confesses, "Rebecca is not my name." In terror, Avery realizes that standing before him is none other than Jovan. The fake Rebecca strikes a match. Flames instantly engulf the building. The last thing Avery manages to do is scrawl the word Joe on the wall in blood with his trembling hand. The viewers are taken back to the beginning of the film. Detective Lerner is on the phone, saying that Jovan is behind the new case once again. Rebecca takes the child, grabs forged documents, and drives away, as always carefully covering her tracks. At this point, the film ends. Thank you all for watching this video to the end, and see you in the next ones.